All right, so those of you who don't know who we are Constellation Energy. So we're a leading energy provider in the US and also in Europe. We primarily focus on generation, specifically nuclear. So we have about 32,000 megawatts of total generation capacity in the country, in the US. We also have a very, very large retail book, specifically servicing most of the Fortune 100 clients in the US for both power and for gas. We also have a decent residential business as well across the US and all deregulated states. And we do provide a number of solutions in the sustainability and the energy saving space as well. We do operate in all 48 states and the District of Columbia. We are fairly large in the energy space overall, and we also do commodity trading.
Awesome. So we wanted to start here by talking a little bit about what does digital mean to Constellation, because I think it means a whole bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. So I think level setting about how we think about it at Constellation is a great place to start. So for us, digital really is a way of operating. And you'll probably hear us say this a few times. It is not purely about the technology, although obviously technology plays a big piece of it. It really is about the way that we're operating and the way that we're approaching getting value. It materially improves performance, and so for us, these are big changes, right? Not small, kind of rounding the edges. This is really like a fundamental reimagination and rethinking of things that then drives that material improved performance. It could be around analytics, AI, digitization, automation, or whatever the word is of the day, but using technology at a certain point, and it's impacting customers, employees, suppliers, meaning the whole gamut from end to end. All right, so if we take a moment and just kind of talk through our journey, I think it's really interesting kind of where we started and where we got to, because then it really lifts off into the story that we have today. So back when many of us were beginning to think about AI in a more main stage space, we were doing things where we were laying foundational pieces in place, and we were really, as I would say, a hammer looking for a nail, right? We would take a use case and we would say, can we apply AI? Can we apply Gen AI? Can we apply machine learning? And we would see value, and we'd feel pretty good about it. So things were going well. But really what we wanted to think about was, is there a different way to approach AI? And what might that be? And so we moved into an assessment phase. We partnered with an external company, because it's really great that we think we're great, but what do other people say? And we got feedback that said, you are really great, you're doing really great, but if you really want to change Constellation and the way that you show up in the industry, you need to rethink the approach and approach things differently. And so we then had a decision to make, right? Because rethinking things, doing things differently takes a lot of dollars, it takes a lot of leadership capacity, it takes a lot of human capital. And so we went to our executive committee and said, hey, this is what we can do. Keep doing what we're doing. We're doing good things, it's great. But if we really want to change that, then we should think about doing it differently. And they said yes. They wanted to think about it doing differently. And we agreed to kind of kick off in 3 different areas, which we call 3 different domains. The first one was in sales, the second one is in our nuclear space, and the third one will probably kick off next year. So with that, we really decided we were going to dive in. We had this top-down leadership at this point, so from the EC, our executive committee, our CEO, saying this is what we want to go do. And then they said, go make it happen. And that's where our journey really began. So as I mentioned, we're focused on 2 distinct, what we call domains, and really, areas of where we're doing work. The first one is in our commercial and industrial sales space. And in that space, we are fundamentally rethinking how do we want to approach sales? How do we want to take the insights from our best sellers and ensure that we can provide that to all of our salespeople? With the goal there being to increase the value, right? Increase the dollars, the sales that we can have across the board. And what I'm really excited to say is we are moving incredibly fast. We started building our POC in April, and a couple months ago, I feel like, we actually put the POC in to start to realize value, and we've already seen value, so upside sales, which is really exciting, because I know a lot of times people say, we're working on stuff, and one day we'll see value. We've seen that value, which is really great. We're obviously using AI, machine learning, Gen AI, and some agent stuff as well. So lots of things going on in that space. Want to talk a little bit more about modern sales?
Yeah, so when we talk about realizing value, we're talking about realizing revenue. And that's something I think which is relatively unique in the AI space today. Most are doing use cases and they're experimenting and they're trying, and we did some of that over the last few years, but one of the big things we said is if we're gonna go big, we're gonna tie ourselves to iterative value, and we're seeing that now. From a modern sales perspective, we think about it in a couple different ways. How do we go to the market and think about who to target? We call our next best opportunity, using reasoning models to embed our sellers and give our sellers new tool sets. How do we automate the processes using reasoning models? We call next best action to determine how to close a deal based on what that deal is, who you're talking to, what you're selling, and why. And then ultimately, can you take agents on top of that and automate that process and take it from what we consider to be weeks to close some of these deals down to days and maybe even same day someday? Those goals are pretty large for us, and I think from a sales perspective, it's the beginning of us thinking about how do we attack the market differently by leveraging digital tech.
Awesome. And the second one, which we're a little bit, we started a little bit later, and we can talk about the process we got to even get to this point, is in our nuclear online work management system. And so in that space, we know for Constellation that it takes us we have a 28-week process whereby we understand what work we want to plan and we schedule it and we do all these things leading up to it. We know that a large amount of that work, when we get to the end, ends up not coming to fruition because people aren't available, there's something happening at the plant. And so really we were looking again to fundamentally reimagine and rethink what that process could be like. And so that really is the second one that we're working on here. So how do we reimagine how we plan and we execute and we manage the work across the plants, across all of the fleets? And again, we're using AI, Gen AI, agentic, the whole bit in order to make that happen.
So one other thing I'll add maybe that's more broad around the theme here is these are very large things for us. We are reimagining how our functions work from the inside out. So instead of starting with the technology, we're starting with the process. When our CEO, gave us the mandate to go find what we call the billion-dollar idea, our response was, we're not going to iterate our way there use case by use case. We have to change how our organization actually works because this technology is that transformative.